father gave me a quarter, and I had to figure out how to spend it. I was 8 years old. It was my very first carnival. And the flags, the banners, the lights, I was just bewildered and dazzled. And they had games of skill and games of chance, and I had a quarter. I settled on a game of chance, and I put my quarter down on my lucky number 7. And the man in front grabbed the big wheel and gave it a good pull, and it spun around, and it finally came to rest on the number 7. He came over to me, counted out 4 more quarters. Now I had 5 quarters. I was wealthy. And I proceeded to spend each one on the number 7 because I was still feeling lucky. And I lost all 5 quarters. I found my father. I said, "Dad, could I have another quarter?" He said, "What do you need another quarter for?" And I told him what happened. I said, "I'm still feeling lucky. Can I have another quarter?" He said, "No, you may not have another quarter. That's the gambling disease. Don't catch the gambling disease." Well, I was 8 years old, but I felt it. I knew what he meant. And I promised that I would never gamble again. And I didn't until one day. I'm going to tell you about that day, but not yet. 10 years later, I'm home from college for a visit. I'm in the car with my father. He double parks in front of the convenience store. I run in to get a newspaper. I come back, and he sees the headlines in the newspaper. New York State Lottery reaches record jackpot. And he says to me, "Sandy, you know, some people only buy a lottery ticket when it's on the front page of the newspaper." Now, how many of you are in that category? Well, I didn't know how the lottery worked. I had to ask him. And he said, "Well, it's pretty simple. You pick 6 numbers. You buy a lottery ticket. Those 6 numbers are printed on the ticket. Once a week, they have a drawing. They select 6 numbers at random. If your numbers on your ticket match the numbers that are drawn, you win the jackpot." Now, most of the time, nobody wins the jackpot, and so the prize money from that week rolls over into the next week. And then sometimes the jackpot gets very, very big. And then he went on to say, you know, there's some people who like playing the lottery so much that they'll go to the newspaper stand 2, 3, 4 times a week just to buy lottery tickets. Okay, how many are in that category? Nobody's admitting it, but we know. And then he said, there's another category of people who want to make sure that they're in the lottery no matter what, without fail. And so they buy an annual subscription. My father was in that category. He had an annual subscription to the New York State Lottery. And then he told me something that I made note of. He said, most people will bet on their lucky numbers, birth dates, anniversary dates, dates that are important to them and their family. But I have a unique method, he said. I bet on my favorite Psalms. You know, the book of Psalms, there's 150 of them, and we know them by their numbers, like Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Well, he took his favorite Psalms, and those are the numbers that he bet on. Well, I was pretty impressed. I thought that was clever and interesting. Not being much of a Psalm reader myself, and until then I had no idea that my father knew one Psalm from another. But anyway, I wrote those numbers down. 20 years go by. My father dies. And for the next 11 months, I'm reading those Psalms. And after just a few weeks, I started to wonder, how did he come to have these Psalms be favorites? How does somebody have favorite Psalms? And of course, it was too late for me to ask. So I speculated. I thought maybe at some point in his life, some event happened, and a particular psalm took on significant, special meaning, and it became a favorite. So I tried to remember all the stories he had told, and he told a lot of stories about his life, his experiences. My sisters and I used to complain, "Dad, we've heard that story 1,000 times." And here I was trying to remember them all and match them up, psalm to story, story to psalm. And of course, there was no way I could be sure that I had it right. I was the executor of his will, and so all of his mail was forwarded to me. And one day I got a particularly large bundle of mail, and so I was sorting through it, looking to see if there was anything that required immediate attention, and my eyes fell on an envelope with the return address from the New York State Division of Lottery. And I thought, there in my hands, here is the prize check. His Psalms have won. What a wonderful tribute to a wonderful man. So I sat down at my desk, the desk that used to be his, and I picked up my letter opener, the letter opener that used to be his. And I slit open that envelope, withdrew the contents, and there in my hands, it was a renewal notice. His annual subscription was about to expire. And there in the upper right corner, in bold black ink, were 6 numbers. 6 numbers to anyone else, but to me they were my father's favorite Psalms. And they represented the stories of a lifetime. And they were about to expire. I was at a fork in the road. Not since that day when I was 8 years old had I ever gambled, not even once. But I renewed that subscription. And I've renewed it now for 37 years. Still waiting for the Psalms to win.